like, well, I've done these drugs before. I'll just take a bunch of acid in the woods with some friends and see what happens. 48 minutes, just was it 48 minutes of like, oh, I did some acid in the field and I found myself. This guy's from space. But, let me talk about how I did some drugs. I guess I'm staring at Andre here, so I guess puppets.
Puppets. Okay, great. Yeah, that works perfectly. Yeah. Puppets. So when, I guess the best question is like, before you get Andre, there's a fascination inherently then with you with puppets. Enough to get one and be like, I'm gonna add this as part of my act. There's a lot of like stages to get to that point. So like, when for you was the first time that you were like, this is an interest of yours, this is something that you're like inspired by maybe, or just makes you laugh?
Yeah, well, it was a thing I've always loved growing up. Like I love the Muppets, and especially out of all puppet stuff, but just anything that had it, I always kind of gravitated towards it and liked it. And then, yeah, doing stand up for a while, and then was kind of like, maybe I could try this and dip my toes into this world. And it's probably like 7 years ago. And I just had a couple store-bought puppets. So I just ended my act with this like kind of dance lip sync kind of thing. And just to test out the skills of it and see how people would react. And sometimes audiences would be down with it. Sometimes audiences would be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm having fun doing that. So then I wanted like an original character. So got Andre made. And then
you got him made, like especially.
Yeah.
Nice.
So he's like one of a kind. Yeah, my friend Meg Frazier went to school for like all this makeup and movie makeup stuff, and she'd made puppets for commercials. And so I was like, reached out and I was like, hey, would you be down? She's like, yeah. And so kind of gave her some ideas, and then she ran with it. And then yeah, Andre was born. And then I learned very quickly they had to be separate. My act and him had to be separate because they were too different, and what I was trying with him wasn't really matching up with what I was trying with my stand-up.
I see. That's very interesting. So you kind of get to, in a way, like A/B test comedy acts because you're like, I could try this style with just myself, and I can feel free to also do this style, and it makes sense because it's with a different character in a way.
Yeah, and so there's jokes that like I just either couldn't work into my own act or were too weird that are perfect for a puppet that's an alien.
But do you have like an example of that where it struck you where you're like, this is more of an Andre bit?
Just like weird puns, like analyzing weird sayings that we have. Like one of my favorite ones. I'll get on when Andre busts out later, I'll get him to do it specifically.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just things that I've come up with, and I would try my own stand-up and then be like, the audience just be like, oh, like that doesn't fit anywhere what you were doing. I'm just gonna close this window because this light is hitting me directly in the eyeballs.
Yeah, go for it, man.
But yeah, so it's been a lot of fun kind of using both of those avenues, and then when an idea comes to mind of like, is that a me joke or is that an Andre joke? And now that I've been doing both long enough, I kind of am in the zone of like, I'm writing Andre stuff right now, or Andre's writing right now.
Okay,
and then,
okay.
Yeah. But then every once in a while, something will still be like, I'll try and then be like, maybe Andre could work that. Like,
yeah, that's a better situation than like I just had Matt O'Brien on and I was asking him about like, being married to another comedian, and he's like, oh, we fight over bits all the time. And I'm like, you're kind of like fighting with yourself over here that like Andre wants, I need to do it like at least it's a little easier,
Yeah, the only thing that I guess would be kind of relatable to that is when something that I couldn't get to works as Andre. I'm kind of like, he got it to work. When I'm like, you did it, but I'm
yeah. It's still coming from you. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's this little part of me that's like, oh,
yeah,
this guy. Like,
that's great. I remember the first time I saw Andre. I think it was Andre, and I had no idea that you did like a puppeteering thing on stage as well. I was like competing in, I don't know, like quarterfinals or something of the Comedy Brawl, or it was a finals or something, and we're at Comedy Bar, and you were in the green room preparing for the show that was going to go on right after us, or maybe it was you were finishing up a show and we were coming in after or something. But I remember you were just like looking at all of us, you're like, I remember winning the Comedy Brawl, and then you just like pulled a puppet out of the like case, and you're like, look where I am now. And I'm like, you're clearly kidding, but it was like such a funny like jest thing to say in the moment.
Yeah, I'll do that every once in a while, break the fourth wall sometimes, like hosting the Andre show of just like, oh yeah, you're in comedy for 13 years and then you're under a desk. Hey, Canadian showbiz, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because it is just one of those things that it was just like, at first I was very nervous to try it out because some people were even comedians were kind of like, what are you doing? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. And it was weird because I'm like, I've been doing stand up forever and I'm fine doing that. Why am I uncomfortable? But it was just
Uh-huh.
trying this thing was even kind of more passion project, more closer to my heart in different ways of like
Yeah.
what it
I
meant
never
to me. So
got
I'm like,
that. I never
with
got
people,
the comedians like judging other comedians for like taking a shot at something creatively. It's not like me. I fucking parlayed into hip hop for a good 2 years. I can understand
yeah,
if there's a little bit of backlash on that. It's like, what, he's skipping into a different art right now? You know what I mean? Like, but you're still within the lane of comedy. Like, yeah, we all try stuff. You can't be like ashamed or like, oh, I wonder what they're gonna say if I try something.
yeah, I find it's a very juvenile thing in comedy. And you kind of get over that once you kind of start doing it professionally and see like, oh, any job is just a good job. Where like when I was younger and I'd see a comedian hosting something on TV, I'd be like, whoa, sell out, or not even sell
Yeah,
out, but like
yeah,
wash, whatever feeling, you know what I mean? Because they weren't doing the cool thing I liked
yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
And then now, after being in this business for almost 15 years, you're like, oh, way to go. You're hosting that thing. Like,
That's
even if
awesome.
it's not something I'd watch, you're just like, nice, you got that job. It's so hard with all the other comedians you were competing with and all
Yeah,
these different things. So I think when, yeah, people are starting out and someone does something different, especially when you're a stand up at first, you're branding yourself so much in your own head as like, this is my identity. I'm a stand
yeah,
up. And so someone's doing something else like, oh, you're not true to stand up. And you're just like, that coolness of it, like you get rid of it, hopefully like
yeah,
after you've been doing it a while. So that's what I feel. Because now people, it's either my own, I don't care if people are saying that anymore. I just don't listen to it. Or I'm just so confident about it now that when I'm interacting with people, they're kind of like, oh, this is awesome. Andre's so cool. Like, can I do the Andre show? Like, oh, wow,
yeah.
man, you really got good at that. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I imagine like Jeff Dunham like going to open mics with like his, you know what I mean? Like I try to, and now he's like fucking selling at arenas. Like it's
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah,
has that
exactly.
stepping stone. Like I'm sure he also started as a stand up and then was like, let me try this. And then for him and his specific humor, he just went 100% into I'm just gonna
And
talk through my different puppets essentially.
yeah, and he does ventriloquism. So like
Yes. Yeah.
that's the combo thing that people like that niche thing, and then he has this plethora of characters and not just one
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
tapped into something that people just wanted. And yeah, a lot of comedians would be like, oh, I'm like, hey, like he's doing a thing people like, and I'm not even really a fan of his comedy per se, but I am a fan of like, hey, that works and he's doing
Yeah.
something.
And you
And
can shit on
so
stuff, but I always find like if you're shitting on something, it's just not for you. It's
yeah,
not for you. People tell me all the time, like, oh, Adam Sandler fell off. Like his movies used to be so funny and blah blah blah. I'm like, you just got old. He's still making movies for the same age group. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah. And I
that's all
watch
that
every one
happened.
when they come out on Netflix, and I chuckle a few times throughout the
Yeah.
movie. You know what I mean?
But like
Like
if you were 10, that shit would take you out. You know what I mean? Like
exactly,
that's who it was made
exactly.
for. Like
Yeah, and when people say that, I'm like, well, even when he's doing those comedies, have you seen him knock it out with uncut gems or this and that?
that,
You're like,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. The
yeah,
guy's proven he's got acting chops, like, yeah,
yeah.
without a doubt. And then he's
Or
another
people,
person too who's taking risks with stuff. Like he's like, I'm gonna make funny songs and did a whole album of just funny music. And
well, that's how he like started in certain stuff. So when he went back and did that with this new special, oh, it was I like him. So he's a good example of people will be like, oh, this person, or comedians will do that on a show if someone goes on stage with a guitar and they're like, oh, and it's just like, hey, you could say, oh, it's easy or whatever. I'm like, it's not. It is if it's good. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? It's
yeah.
easier if you can carry a tune and write a couple jokes. It's easier than getting them on board with a thing, but it's not easy. And
Mm-mm.
it mixes it up. It's just this weird obsession with everything's got to be like mine, but then you don't want it to be like yours because you want to stand out. So it's this weird,
Yeah, yeah. Like we don't
yeah,
know those people don't know what they want. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
They
yeah.
don't they
And
know what they want. They don't want to see other people succeed. That's what they don't want.
that's
It's
it.
the
I
same thing
think
with
too. This,
TikTokers. Like you could apply this logic to anything. Like, oh, he just got famous off of TikTok. You're like, and that good. More people know about comedy. Great.
yeah,
You know
it's
what
an
I mean? Like,
avenue of to get more eyes on what you do, and
exactly. Just
it's
go
one of those
go all
things.
in.
Yeah,
Well, I want to go back. Like, when did it click for you that you were going to try comedy in general? Like, when was that moment that you were like, I've wanted to do this, and now I'm gonna go actually through with it? Because that's the hardest part, I think, for most people.
it was. I was pretty young age. It was like in high school.
Oh, wow,
Uh,
nice.
yeah,
I
because
also
like
started at like 19. Like, as soon as I was able to get into a bar, I was like,
yeah, and there's things I like that I started that young, and things I dislike about it, obviously. But like,
mm-hmm.
I at first wanted to like I grew up in Thunder Bay, and there wasn't really there's an art scene, but there's not like a film industry or a stand-up comedy scene.
Sure,
There's
yeah.
like more like some paintings and like now there's a bit
It's
more of a
like
live
Brockville.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it has more of a lively scene now for all different kinds of arts, but like to make a living, it would be definitely difficult. So at first I wanted to do film, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's gonna be a long road. And then I just started like kind of hosting shows at my high school and different things like that. Just doing like sketches and like characters. And then like one time I was on stage by myself and got like a huge auditorium laughing, and I was kind of like,
Oh, sick.
oh, that felt really good. And then I kind of just like always liked stand up, like would watch it on the Comedy Network after school and stuff. And then kind of was like, oh, maybe this is something I really like. And started buying comedy albums in Thunder Bay, and then was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And just started like doing like little shows even in Thunder Bay when I was like 18, like at like the university bar or whatever, or cafe. So it didn't matter that I wasn't 19. And then yeah, I moved to Toronto, started doing it, and then haven't stopped since.
Wow, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of a similar trajectory in the sense of like I was like maybe acting is a thing I could do, and then fell back into doing a stand-up spot through an opportunity, and I was like, no, it's just this. I don't give a fuck about acting. There's something about acting.
Yeah.
It's all the waiting around, it's the memorizing of the lines. I'm like, I don't have any interest in doing this at all.
And the waiting around, the not knowing why something didn't work,
Mm,
other than having to stay in it long enough to be like, oh, sometimes it does not matter. Sometimes you did a good job and it's they just went with this or this or this or
yeah,
but
yeah,
like with comedy, it was this quick knowing of like that worked or it didn't.
yeah.
And then working on it then and like kind of within a couple of weeks you could work on something that in acting would take forever. So
True.
it's definitely the impatience of comedians
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
think
It's
led a
it's
lot
a
of us to it.
much quicker turnover with figuring out if a joke works or not than like
Yeah.
waiting for a project to come out 2 years later and I guess it was good.
Yeah, or like doing scenes and then like like the few things that I have worked on, like they're fun, but those moments of fun are in between so much waiting, exactly that, and like
hmm
going through makeup and then waiting around in a trailer and then like especially when you have small parts like I would get, you don't get this camaraderie of hanging out with this people on set on this production because you're
Yeah.
brought in for a couple days.
Yeah,
So
that's
like,
the hard thing
yeah,
with
maybe
that.
this, yeah, so maybe the core group gets this and like becomes a family, isn't it? But people that are in the couple scenes saying 5 lines, or drive. I was an Uber driver in some show or something, this and that.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm in 3 things, and so like I'm there, but then the people I'm acting with while I'm there are like on their phone. They're like, "Oh, yeah, let's go." They're polite.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
not,
yeah. But they're in their
but they're
own
not being
shit. Yeah, yeah.
exactly,
Different if you're
exactly.
seeing
So
them every day at 7 a.m. or you're taking the same shuttle over with them or whatever. I remember doing like most on-screen stuff I've had is like featured background work where you're just kind of like you're not blurred for a moment. You know what I mean? You don't have any lines, but you're just not
but
blurred.
you could be like, "That's me," and people are like, "It."
Yeah, 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 right. But like I remember doing like 3 days of continuity for one thing, and then just even within those 3 days, like all became really close with like the other people that were just around me every time for those scenes. Did you get like any early success in like commercial work or anything when you were in Toronto? I remember there was something that you had. I can't. Was it Taco
Oh
Bell?
yeah. Well, that was for the voice stuff, but that
The
happened
voiceover.
later.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, yeah. When I first moved and everything, and I started doing stand up, I got an agent. Someone saw me in a crowd, not in a crowd. They were in an audience, and
You.
was like, "That
They're
guy."
just.
Yeah, I was doing stand
I
up,
haven't seen a
and like
ginger
someone
man in years.
like, "This man needs to be in commercials selling candy." And so someone on the show had brought their agent to watch them, I guess. And
Okay.
so that person came up to me after, and they were like, "Hey, you were funny. You're doing like some characters in your stand up. Have you ever thought about acting?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I was like super new to the city and everything. And so I just was like, "Yeah." And so this guy started sending me out for auditions for commercials. And I had a big red beard at the time. And it was like in this moment in commercials where uh like it was early 2000s, so TV commercials were still a viable thing. People were still watching network
Yeah.
TV, like streaming services hadn't taken over yet. And so like there were trends that you would see in commercials that would happen. Like, "Oh, this kind of funny person, or this kind of
Mm,
chubby person that does this in commercials." And red beards for whatever reason were in.
wow.
Like,
That's
yeah,
so
and so I
bad. You're
was
like,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. And like another comedian, a buddy of mine, Garrett Jameson, and I would show up to a lot of things, and then eventually we'd start being like, you or me," like because we had really big ones.
Yeah,
And on
yeah.
top of that, we were comedians, so all these
Ah,
roles were the comedic element of the commercial. And so these actors with red beards were coming in, but like me and Garrett and a couple other comedians were just nailing these little things that they needed us to do. And so like I would clean up at first with commercials, with like different candy commercials, different like any comedic stuff. Much I did a lot of Much Music commercials, and then got more on that, and then I started getting like little bit roles on TV shows, and then barely like a character name. Like one time my character had a name, and then other times it's like Uber driver, Lyft
oh, okay.
driver,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
delivery guy. You know what I mean?
I always
And
laugh at
then
like the poor lady who's on like CSI and she's like dead hooker number three.
I
And
know,
she's
I
got to
know.
like tell her parents, like, that's me. I'm
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait for like because sometimes you'll watch a movie and it'll be like creepy guy, and I'm like, ooh,
yeah, yeah. You're like,
I want creepy guy.
what?
One time I got murdered and it was awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Like,
How was
and
that?
they had that was for this like Beauty and the Beast show, some CW show. And the Beast would like see the crime happen when after like at a crime scene. So I was there dead with like all this cool makeup, but then the Beast would see me. So I had to get murdered and they had to like cut my face off, and like it
Oh,
was super cool. The guys who did like the Dawn of the Dead zombie makeup were working on this show. So it
that's
was and
sick.
and I was the only big prosthetic that day. So they're like, "Hey, this is all we got." So they really did like an amazing like movie quality
Wow.
job for this scene in this show. It's gonna be kind of blurry, and but they were just like, "Yeah, let's do it," and it was super cool. But then from there, started getting a couple voice things, and then that world opened up, and I started doing a lot more voice work than I did on camera stuff.
Mm. Do you
I
prefer
kind of
that?
started, yeah, for a lot of reasons. It's like it's fun, like because I got a cartoon and I did a whole season of a cartoon, and
Awesome.
that was
What is it? So
super fun.
people can people check it out anywhere?
Yeah, it's called Kingdom Force, and it's
Okay.
on CBC Gem. I'm pretty sure it's on that app
Hey guys, who's ready to get busy relaxing?
still, because it only
Nice.
came out during like 2020.
Okay.
Um, Tons of fun playing like a character and doing a whole bunch of episodes and like learning all of that and like doing all the sound effects of like you're grunt, like you just have to stand there and like grunt a bunch in case like the character needs to like push something, you know what I mean? And, like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
tons of
That's sick.
fun.
You wouldn't even think about those little details like that.
Yeah, because like I think of like you'd see those like behind the scenes features of movies when you were a kid of Robin Williams doing the genie or something, and like going like
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
whoa, and that's all you really see. And so I'm like doing all that for my lines, but now they're like they need like whoa, 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 and then just like uh, at different volumes, and it was so that was so much fun and so interesting, and like that led to like a couple other cartoons, not full seasons, but like villains in like a cartoon, or did a couple movie uh background sound of like it was just like during like when Harry Potter, Twilight, all those movies were super popular. One of those, I think it was Mortal Instruments. Can't remember. It was one of those books that they were trying to make it take off like all the
Mm.
other ones. And
Hmm.
like people were changing from humans to werewolves, and they had like the sound of the human actors being like and they had the werewolf CGI sound effects of like but they needed that in between, and it was like I guess for this movie it was cheaper instead of getting all those individual actors and trying to find them and get them like
Yeah.
on their rate. It didn't really matter because it wasn't them, it was the sound effects. So they got me and two other actors to stand in this room and watch like that scene of the movie and be like, and like that was probably
That's
the
great.
weirdest, funniest one I've ever done because it was
I'd
just
love to
like,
see that just written out on the line sheet. You're like, line.
yeah, because I was just like, oh, you got in this movie, and in my
Yeah.
brain, it was still when I was still new to the voice world. I'm like, oh, I'm a voice in a movie, and then I'm like, Mortal. I'm like, I had no idea what this was. Thinking it's this animated movie. I'm going in. This is before I done the cartoon show. I really knew the voice world at all. And then I was like in this, and I was like, oh, this movie's done.
Mm.
Oh, is it like some robot on the wall or something? You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah,
Jarvis
yeah.
type character or something like that. And then they're like, no, no. And then they explained it when we got there. I was like, this is the weird. And then these other two guys are voice guys, so they're just like, and I'm
Oh,
just like,
they're like
what?
getting right into it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and like knowing that this is gonna be strenuous on our throats because we're gonna be yelling and growling, so they're like getting ready,
Wow.
and I'm just like that day I was like, okay, gotta learn like some voice technique, and I took a couple like voice like classes
Classes and
just
stuff.
just to know the technique of being in the room and different stuff to not screw my voice over.
That kind of knowledge is so valuable. I remember reading Jenna Fisher's book on acting. She played Pam in The Office,
Oh
and
yeah,
she was talking about how there was a scene where they had to eat cake or whatever, and nobody told them that they weren't, her and Minnie Kaling, that they weren't supposed to actually eat the cake because they're gonna do that scene like 30 times, of just
yeah.
them eating it. And they were hungry, I guess, so they're eating it the whole time. And then they ate a bunch and they were full. And then the guy's like, all right, let's go again. She's like, again? What do you mean? And like by the end of it, they were like about to puke because they had eaten so much sugar and cake. And it's just
Oh
like
yeah.
never again. So now you like people watching, when someone's eating in a movie, they're literally taking a few bites, chewing, and then spitting it into a can beside them. Like it's the most horrendous waste of food I've ever heard of
I know.
ever.
Like, was the first time it was like a candy commercial or something I had done where that was introduced to that world of like, oh, here's your spit bucket. In my brain, I'm like, I'm not gonna be just spitting. What is this, a cowboy set? Like, what's happening?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't have dip in your chew in me. And they're like, no, you're gonna be taking a bite. I'm like, oh, I want that. I'm like, yeah, you'll want the first two, and then you're gonna be doing like close ups, wides, this and that. It's not just that we think you're gonna be bad and do a bunch of takes because you suck. We need,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then it made me realize like, oh, like took the magic a bit more away from movies and TV, and then made me go, oh, that's disgusting, and oh, what a waste of like Why
Yeah.
do people write that in unless it's absolutely necessary? Why are people just having a lunch and dinner on scenes
Yeah.
that have nothing to do with it? Like, I guess
It's like beer commercials. Like I know they're legally not allowed to show people drinking, but that also is saving a lot of beer. You know what I mean? Like I know
I've
it's
done a
all
few.
ginger ale or whatever for the commercials, but like it's always just people having a good time, raising the glass, and they never actually drink any of it.
Yeah, I've done a few like liquor commercials, and that's it. They're like, "Oh wait, cut back. Did we see him open?" Like, there's rules of, yeah, you can be cheersing, but you can't
Cheersing,
be
certain
drinking,
things.
and like
Yeah.
it can be open, but you can't open it. Something I can't remember
You're
the
just
rules now, but yeah,
dancing around like this little thing here.
which is such a weird. Like, who made some of the rules up about those things? It's like,
It seems so arbitrary and stupid.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but like has because you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but like has been doing acting and voiceover work kind of like stolen the magic of movies for you, or is there still some films where you can allow yourself to get lost in the storyline?
Oh yeah, well, I guess my own lack of success at a certain point, like being in levels of things, has helped keep the magic because
Sure.
like I said, every set or something. I've done a lot of commercials and a lot of voice work for commercials and cartoons, but like only a couple dipping my toes into the film work and then TV shows. And so yeah, it has taken away a lot, but then also just like maturing in how much our world has brought that camera behind the scene even more
Hmm.
than ever before, has taken that magic away.
Yeah,
Like
that's
it
true.
seems,
We see way more behind the scenes footage than ever. It used to just be like on the DVD commentary or whatever, like you'd see maybe an
and
extra.
yeah, and the film or production company was in control of what they were allowing you to
Yes.
see. Where
Yeah,
then
yeah,
this
yeah.
world became like, oh crap, people are leaking stuff. People are trying to get on set to do photos. So they had to find a way of like, well, we got to do this for them in a way. We have to release
Yeah.
these and make them think that they're getting this, but we have to be in control. So it changed the game of it to the point where you saw the mechanism of movies and the business of it way more, and was just like kind of like, ugh, a little grossed out by it. And so like
Yeah.
that took the magic away just as much as actually working in
I
it.
see. Okay, okay, that makes sense. Um, now for you, you're how long have you been sober for?
Been sober now. I actually just celebrated 5 years on
Nice. Congrats, man.
June 20th. Thank you
Oh
very much.
yeah.
Yeah, off the booze and cocaine.
Because I know for a lot of comedians, the the nerves pre going on stage is I don't want to say the excuse for like diving into bad habits, but it often like feels like it can be cured if I just have a shot or if I just you know hit this joint or if I just do this thing, maybe I'll be less nervous to do this. Was any of it related to comedy or was it like your own personal kind of inner battles?
Uh, yeah, it was definitely my own kind of, in a way, comedy helped me for a bit. Then it helped hurt me because of
Hmm.
the choices I made with it, and then it helped me again.
Okay.
Because like I grew up in Thunder Bay, Northern Ontario. You start drinking early, and so like I started drinking with friends at like 13, not all the time, but like those few weekends that we could. And then by like 14, 15, 16, you're drinking like a lot, almost
Wow.
as every party you can get to, which depending on the month and whose parents are away could be every weekend or only one weekend, or
Hmm.
you know what I mean? But like
Yeah, yeah.
you're drinking heavily. And it was like early 2000s where it was just like, yeah, people had cell phones, but not like camera phones. And it was just
Yeah.
very, very basic where like you could call your parents, or like cell phone reception was so bad that you're like, I'm at this person's house where it doesn't work. And they just were like, yep, it doesn't. So like we'd just be in the bush getting hammered. So it was like a world of like tons of alcoholics running rampant, but no one would know because it wasn't just part of the lifestyle of there. And then like moving to Toronto around 19 and starting to do comedy, I was so wanting to do it and so focused on it that like those nights I would get a, a, a set on a Yuks amateur night, or a set at Spirits, or these certain ones that were coveted at that certain time, which change every 5-6 years, or you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
yeah,
Uh, like those nights, I'd be like, I'm not touching anything today. I'm not smoking a joint. I'm not drinking. But then the moment that set would be done,
you were
holy
like,
moly,
I'm gonna unwind.
yeah, and I would
Yeah.
celebrate it or drown in the sorrows of it going bad.
Ah, okay, okay.
And then like for the first like few years, I wanted to just get good at comedy. So like I'd be pretty serious about not drinking or doing like drugs or having a beer or two.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because you
Like
had
getting there.
enough cognition to realize like this is gonna hinder my performance and my ability to do this thing that I really want to do. And I want to do
Yeah.
comedy more than I want to drink or do anything else.
Yeah, I was drinking in Thunder Bay because I
Yeah.
couldn't do comedy. If
Exactly.
I'm
There's
here
no,
doing
yeah, okay, okay. That makes
so, and
sense.
then, but then those off nights, I was drinking pretty heavily in
Yeah.
college and just
It's so
living in.
fucking weird how boredom makes us do like I know people that like just they if they're bored they just eat and that's their addiction. You know what I mean? Like there's some people like I'm gonna go have another cigarette and they step it just they're just bored. I feel like
Well,
our
because boredom
generation
leads to like you thinking about stuff and then
don't want
realizing
to
certain things
do that.
exactly. And so it's not necessarily all the time boredom. It's just
Yeah,
like it's
moments
because
of
like
it.
yeah, because at first it was to fit in and drinking. Everyone's
Yeah.
starting to do that. If I want to have friends, I got to go to these events and I can't not drink. Like you can, but that's very hard to be doing that. And then it was just accepted, and then I did it more. And then
hmm
after I like got good in my mind at comedy and started getting more gigs, I was like, oh, I can have a couple before the show. Oh, I can have a few more. Oh, I can day drink and go to a show.
hmm
I can be hammered, and then I would just be like a roller coaster of nights. And then I started getting into cocaine, and then that was just like,
How did you get introduced to that? You don't have to name names, but
yeah, it was for like obviously I was like in a long relationship for a bit, and then I was single, and then in a relationship for a bit, and then I was finally single, and I was like, I'm finally gonna be like single and just woo. And so it was like
mm,
through meeting a girl, and then it was around in comedy too. It had been offered to me, but I was kind of like, I already kind of in the back of my head knew my drinking was pretty bad, and I was like, I don't know if I should.
yeah,
And
you're
then
like, I don't want
finally
to
a
add
girl,
this to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then finally, I was just interested in this girl. She was like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And I was kind of just like blinded by. I'm like, "Yeah," then yeah, yeah. And then like
Yeah.
that fell apart. But I was like, "I love this now,"
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it just like got out of control. And I was doing it like daily and going to after hours on like a Tuesday and just being ridiculous and like stopping on some days and having good shows just because I needed to, like physically.
Yeah.
And then some shows were just like shows, especially I needed to do well, like on a showcase or something else, just shitting the or a contest, getting all the way to the finals, and then like just being hammered and then losing. Not necessarily like I would have won if I wasn't, but just like
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
myself out of the possibility of even
Yeah. Even giving
doing it.
yourself a chance, fair shot at doing it your best performance, right?
Exactly,
What
exactly.
was the breaking point for you where you just decided like did you go to rehab? Did you say like I'm just gonna go cold turkey? Like how did
I
you
tried a few different times. I tried AA a couple times, and then I tried therapy, and then I tried quitting cold turkey, and then nothing worked. And then I was just like, I guess I'm just gonna like in my head, I was like, I'm just gonna just die this way. Like
wow.
this
So you
will
had
kill
an
me easy.
acceptance that it wasn't gonna wow.
Yeah, yeah. And then like weirdly enough, saw this interview on a late night talk show, might have been Colbert or someone, and Michael Pollan, this guy had written this book about how to change your mind, about how mushrooms and acid and MDMA were used in the 60s to help people with depression, addiction, and terminal illnesses and all these things. And he's talking about it and like they're making light of it and being like, oh, you tripped in this book. He's like, well, I had to do them, this and that. I'm watching this kind of like, holy moly, like this is maybe I've done mushrooms for fun and I've done acid for fun. If this is a potential thing, why not? And I got this book and I read it and I was just like, Oh, and it was suggesting all these like proper ways of like go to a therapist, and they're really hard to find in certain countries or certain like one province or a couple states. All this and do this proper way, this and that. I'm like, well, I've done these drugs before. I'll just take a bunch of acid in the woods with some friends and see what happens. And just like all that stuff that if you've ever done
I've never
psychedelics,
done acid, but I've done mushrooms a fair amount of times.
yeah.
So I
So
know
like
I know
that,
what you're talking about. Like I remember like I had been smoking a lot of cigarettes and I was laying on my back and I could just all I heard was my heart beating. And then this like circulating thought in my mind of like you should stop smoking cigarettes. Like you hear that heartbeat sound? Yeah, that's gonna stop. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what? And I just like scared myself. And I turned to my buddy and I was like, I think I should stop smoking cigarettes. He's like, do whatever you want, man. Like he
he's
doesn't
like,
care.
I'm
He's on his
talking
own
to the
trip. Like,
ground, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's it. Like I've done mushrooms before and acid before, and like crazy amounts at like festivals and different things. And anytime those like creepy things would creep in, I'd be like, "Oh, get out of here and let's get back to partying and like forget that." And so like,
Oh, I think he froze for a sec there. Okay, there you are.
I think we froze there for a second.
Yeah. I'll cut a technical difficulties thing in the middle. Comes in handy for
Cool.
these video podcasts. But yeah, you were
Yeah.
saying that you had usually used psychedelics as like a party drug anytime a
Yeah.
creeping thought came in.
I would go back to the party. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this book kind of said, without saying it this way, of like, deal with those thoughts, those
Yeah.
creeping in things, those things that you've been burying. That once you take this thing, whatever it's doing to your mind, stripping away your ego and all these things and showing you these things. And then once you actually deal with them or you understand what's going on a bit more in your brain to whatever degree you can, because whatever level of maturity you're at or understanding of your own self and mind and blah blah blah. I've clearly done enough mushrooms and acid. You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
But and so like I dealt with a lot of stuff of like, oh, that's why I'm running to this. That's this and this. And there was a lot of family stuff and past things and all this stuff. And I was just like, holy moly. And like the morning, yeah, kind of like that, like you just said, of like, oh, I think I've been smoking. Like that morning, I was like in my underwear, didn't go to bed, sitting around the fire, just like tears, had been crying like all night and laughing and like, ha ha. And a couple friends came out. They're like, what's up? I was like, oh, I'm never drinking again. And they're like, okay. Like knowing me, like the couple nights before, I was like down in the 26 or whatever. And then it was like, it stuck. And I was just like, whoa, holy shit. Like, and now I like go to different things. I go to certain kinds of AA, talk to people, like stuff like that. You got to check.
That.
Yeah. And I don't like sit around doing acid and mushrooms all the time. I think I've done them like once a year since.
That's the beautiful thing about psychedelics is they're not an inherently like an addictive substance. It really truly feels like a once a year reset that you need to do, almost like a
yeah. And when people do fall down those tunnels, it's usually a depressive episode or something else. It's like psychologically going on that they're turning to that escape just as much as someone turns to heroin or weed, even cigarettes. Yeah. Yeah, because even as someone with a very addictive personality, those are, even before when I was using it as a party drug, the one drug that I was like, whew, I got on that for a few months.
Yeah.
That was a lot of nights. Like,
yeah, because it's just so intense. Like, I'll never forget like the most intense feeling that I've ever felt on mushrooms is I was sitting in my apartment and I think I had done like 4 or 5 grams, and I'm like sitting back like this and just tears are just streaming down my face. And I felt you're into comic books, right? Like, what's the thing that Thor comes through when he goes to Asgard? You know that like beaming light and energy thing? Yeah. I could feel something like that going into my head, and it was just feeding me all of life's knowledge from the beginning of time until now. And I couldn't hold on to any of it. Like, I was like, wow, that's crazy. Whoa, that's nuts. Oh, that's insane that happened. And I'm going back and forth, but I can't grab any of it. And then what I realized was the important thing wasn't any of that information. It was the fact that I have a problem letting go of control. I feel like I need to control everything. And it was just showing me like, you are completely out of control. Like, we are in control right now. And like, you just need to be cool with that. And then I just like relax completely after that.
Yeah, that's what that feeling is. It's like almost like a roller coaster kind of up thing of like, whoa, I don't like this feeling. And then the more mushrooms or acid you do, and like the more your body even kind of goes away. And that exactly thing of like, you can look into this cosmos and be like, I know we're all connected in one, and that doesn't matter. So if that doesn't matter, all these problems in my life can't matter. Like we're all matter. Like it sounds so hippie-ish or whatever, but yeah, when you go to that place, it helps you then when you have those thoughts when you're not on the drug, when you have those thoughts creeping back, you're kind of like, that's my brain being a bit of a dick.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We're all matter.
yeah. And like I can focus on this thing and not be bogged down on a decision I made or something that was done to me by someone and then like my feeling of space, because I've always loved space. And then that's where Andre kind of like was born from. I started reading a lot more of space, and that Voyager that we had sent out in the 70s. We had a gold record on it that had all the information about humans. And I was just like, that's wild. And I'm like, what if an alien found it and like came back and was like, hey, how's it going? And I was just like, what? Like that's where Andre came from.
I love that shit so much. Like when you get into the weeds of like the light that we're seeing from these galaxies and stars is like millions of years old, and the light is just reaching us now. And I'm like, how insane is that for someone on the flip side, an alien, let's say, looking at Earth, the light emitting from Earth, they were like to get a telescope, like what they might be seeing dinosaurs right now. They might not even think that anyone is here because they're seeing that light just getting to them now, you know?
Oh,
and it's
man,
like, so all those timelines are existing like at the same time. Like now the past and the future is all happening at once.
Yeah, once I got sober and used acid to get sober, the few times I've done it since, I kind of like check in with myself to make sure those things are like, you still cool, man?
Yeah,
like, how's everything doing? This and that. And then let my brain fly in these cool sci-fi ideas. And like my writing that I haven't really even turned, none of it's stand-up. And I'm not sure if it's going to be a script or short stories or what I'm going to do with it. But that writing and those ideas are just like, boo, 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 and just like running with it. And it's just kind of like, whoa, our minds are so cool. Like I feel like I want to teach kids about science. Like, man, you're right. But I don't know enough to do it. So they just like, get this guy out of here. I think he's pushing mushrooms on these kids. Like, no, wait until you're at a reasonable age.
Let's get on the magic school bus, man.
Yeah.
It's just a bus that you do mushrooms on.
Yeah, like I got puppets. Hey. Don't talk to that man.
Yeah. There's a question that I ask all the guests towards the end of the podcast, and is if you could make a phone call to 15-year-old Bobby and give him a piece of advice, knowing what you know now, also knowing that it won't affect your current timeline, whatever you tell him, what do you say?
15, he was pretty like, hey, let's go out there. So I'd just say like, try to hold on to that and try to stay off the sauce.
He's like, pizza sauce?
Yeah, like I was a chubby kid too, so he would have been like, hey man, come on.
I can't do pizza without the sauce. For everybody watching on YouTube, go check out Bobby on Instagram, Bobby Knauff Cat and Cats. I put all the links in the description below. Do you have anything else that people want to check out? I see your album here, Rock Bottom, available everywhere. Spotify as well?
Oh yeah, that one's available everywhere. And then the Catman Let Loose is just in editing right now. I recorded that just in May. Nice. At the downtown Yuks in Toronto, and just in editing of that. And then also follow Andre if we got a
Oh yeah.
couple, he can pop in just for
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, yeah, yeah.
two questions and tell you his favorite joke.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Enough of this guy. I'm the guy. I'm from outer space here. Okay, you get out of here. Hey, how's it going?
Welcome, Andre, to the show. It's good to have you. I mean, I feel like I'm Jimmy Kimmel with Matt Damon right now. Like we didn't have enough time, and then we're squeezing in at the end.
I
Bobby was
know,
telling me about your favorite joke.
48 minutes. Just was it 48 minutes of like, oh, I did some acid in the field and I found myself. This guy's from space. But let me talk about how I did some drugs.
Yeah, I gotta get you back on the show. I think it would be
For
much
sure.
more.
I'd love
Yeah,
to
I'll
be
have just Andre do the entire podcast.
That would be
That should
great.
actually be what we'll do next, and ask you all the
Yeah, how
space
about
questions.
we start over? Is this
Yeah,
live?
yeah.
Let's start over and let's just scrap this. I'm kidding. I love you. He's got an album coming out with his musings, his jokes. But anyways, I'll tell you. So one of my favorite ones. This guy could never get away with it. I love the human sayings you guys have, the colloquialisms you guys have. Like people like to say like, "Oh, looks like the tables have turned." You heard that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually someone's trying to put one up on you, like, "Hey, you had it up on me," and then bam, tables have turned. I got it on you. But I think you guys are using it wrong. Because get this, you ever see a lazy Susan before?
Yeah.
Yes, best human invention. The U.S. think computers or cars. Nope, lazy Susan. You're at breakfast. You're like, "Oh, where's the salt? It's over there, but I'm over here spinning around. Bam, you got the salt." Lazy Susan. So maybe the first time that saying was said, maybe someone just saw Lazy Susan for the first time, and they're like, "Whoa, looks like the tables are turned." See, this
I
guy
like that.
would never get a laugh. People are like, "Oh, look at this. This guy's charming." I like
You
his
are
views.
very charming, Andre. You're very
Thank
charming.
you. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time because I know we'll do another episode. Get
Yeah,
down to
yeah.
the
We're definitely gonna do an episode just with you, Andre. I got
yeah,
loads of questions.
yeah. I got my own show, better attended than this guy's. Really cutting you up right now.
Come on, Bobby. Andre's selling out before you.
I know. I'm doing well.
You gonna do
Okay.
Winnipeg Comedy Festival next?
That's what I'm saying. This guy's headlining Yuks Winnipeg next 2 weekends, but best. I'm your man. I'm your guy. Thanks for having me on. I'll be back for a full episode. It'll be great.
Of course.
Well, thank you, Andre. Thanks.
Just comes in and just rebel rouses you the whole time.
Oh yeah, that's our relationship turning more and more into that. Because I'm trying to work on a show to pitch.
Yeah,
He's been doing his live talk shows. I'm trying to get more like videos and that going and everything, and then try to pitch it as like a show. I'm not sure to who yet or whatever, either an online webisode series or CBC or something.
Yeah, man, you got a talent for that. So like somebody will definitely pick it up. I'm manifesting that for you.
Yeah, and I've been dipping my toes more into the puppeteering world, and it's interesting and fun and really cool.
Yeah, I love that, man. Come back on too whenever your hour comes out, the new hour, if you want to like promote it or whatever, we can have you back on for sure.
Of course, eh?
Yeah. This is the new world of media. Yeah, I'm on the spot. Come promote it here.
Of course, we cut out a little bit right there.
Yeah, right at the very end.
Yeah,
that's how she goes. I was saying that like I'll have you come back on and promote the album.
Yeah.
Whenever
that's, getting. Yeah,
whenever
it
you
should
get
be
it
up.
out.
Yeah, it's been my lacking, not the editor guy. He's been kind of like, "Hey, let me hear your notes or whatever." But I've just been traveling and doing stuff. But yeah, it'll be out. It'll be out soon, and I'm very excited. A lot of weird jokes on this one.
Well, thanks so much for making the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah. Everybody watching, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss another episode. You're listening on iTunes, give us a 5-star review. That always helps. And if you want these episodes ad-free before anyone else, you got to go to patreon.com/the Johnny Rogers. It's the only way to get it. But for now, it's been Bobby Knauff and Andre the Alien. And I'm Johnny Rogers. Take her easy.
You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.